Hey guys, I hope you're having a pleasant afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time of day it is. I have some interesting things going on here with the light, but I'm just going to go with it. It looks like my microphone is like this. I think it may look like it's a glowing orb, which is kind of cool. That's the sun. I like that. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about in this video, as the title will say, is the Waffle House Index. So as I was researching this, I realized that there are a lot of people who watch my videos who won't know what a Waffle House is. They only exist within the U.S. to my understanding. At least that's what I got from my research. And even within the U.S., they're only in 25 states. So Waffle House, it is a chain of diners, a chain of restaurant diners. That's it. It was founded in 1955 by a guy named Samuel Cathy in Avondale Estates, Georgia, this township, which is just east of Atlanta. The states with the most Waffle Houses are Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. So even though they're not all over the country, when you are in certain areas of the country, you will see a lot of them. So just as a comparison to McDonald's, we all know how big McDonald's is. In Georgia, there are 432 Waffle Houses and 442 McDonald's. So what that lets you know is that people in Georgia really like to eat unhealthy food, and Waffle House is almost as big there as McDonald's. All right. So side note, two things that Waffle House is known for: never closing, being open 24/7, which is actually going to kind of play into this index. And also being a place where people go to get into fistfights. If you go on YouTube, you will find tons of Waffle House fights of not only the customers but the servers there, and maybe even the cooks. But despite that, the Waffle House it's a cool place to hang out with. The servers there are some of the nicest people that you will ever meet. They're very, very friendly. So no matter what time of day or night you go there, and they are always like maybe even a little too friendly and a little too chatty sometimes. It's like, I just want to eat, but they're very nice people. So if you ever get the chance and you've never gone to Waffle House, stop by. All right. So what is the Waffle House Index, now that I got that out of the way? So the Waffle House Index is this thing that was, I guess you could say, invented, developed by Craig Fugate, who was a FEMA administrator under Obama. And it was a way of informally measuring the amount of damage or the circumstance of an area after a natural disaster. So if you think about this, where the Waffle Houses are, they are in the Southeast and they are in the Midwest. So in these areas, you often have tornadoes, hurricanes, and flooding. So what they can do is they could call the Waffle House and they could say, how are you guys doing right now? And if the Waffle House has very little damage and full electricity and gas and maybe just like some limitations, I guess you could say, it's called a code green, meaning the area isn't too bad off. If the Waffle House it has maybe no electricity, no gas, but they're still providing, they're still serving people, which I'll talk about that in a second. It's called the code yellow. And next we have a code red, and I'm just going to describe that by quoting Mr. Fugate, and I'm probably butchering his name. He says, if you get there, referring to the Waffle House or the area of the Waffle House, if you get there and the Waffle House is closed, that's really bad. So that means that the Waffle House isn't functioning at all, and that's really bad. So why does the Waffle House Index work, and what does it tell people? Well, as I mentioned before, Waffle House is open 24/7. But another thing about Waffle House that makes it interesting is that even if they lose electricity or power, in theory, now if the servers will actually do this, if the managers will do it, is another question. But in theory, they have a menu or special menus for different circumstances. So if they don't have gas, they go to a limited menu, but they still serve people. If they don't have electricity, they go to a limited menu, but they still serve people, right? And even if there is a natural disaster and the power is out and everything, whatever, then Waffle House has special teams that will go to the Waffle Houses and get them up and running. Now this could be temporary gas, this could be emergency generators, but while everything else is closed and still recovering, Waffle House is supposed to still be serving food. right? So that's why this index work, because they will be able to communicate. They will be open when nothing else is. And if they're unable to do that, then as he says, things are really bad. Now, what this also would tell people at FEMA is that, let's say that you, well, first of all, let me say this. Hurricane parties are a real thing. I lived on the coast for 4 years, and people who live on the coast, especially people who grew up on the coast, they often will not leave. If it's a category 3, they will just hang, they'll wait it through. If you don't know what a hurricane party is, you get together, you get batteries, you get flashlights, you anticipate the power going out, you have food that's not perishable, and you make the most of the situation, right? That's a hurricane party, right? So even after a disaster, let's say there's flooding, the power's out, Waffle House may be the first place to get power or get gas or to be functioning. So it could take days or even a week or so. I was at a place, or I was in a, we got hit by a hurricane. This wasn't actually on the coast. This was about 100 plus miles from the coast. But the storm had came up through our state, and by the time it hit us, it was strong winds, but it was enough to take out the power with strong winds and rain. And we went almost, I don't know, it was a week. It may have been like 4 or 5 days without power. So there you go. But anyway, even if the area doesn't have power, Waffle House may get their power and gas up and running before anyone else or everyone else. So what that can tell FEMA is like, okay, you don't have power and electricity area, but do you have customers? And the Waffle House could be like, yeah, we got customers. So why that would be useful is because it would tell them, well, even though they don't have power and electricity, the roads aren't completely, the roads are clear enough for people to travel, even though they may not. Maybe they shouldn't be traveling, but they're capable of traveling despite the debris and the possible flooding. So that's additional information. So that's the Waffle House Index. It's kind of an informal measure of the level of damage done by a natural disaster. So as I was researching this, I actually found 2 other indices tied to foods and restaurants. One was the Big Mac Index, which is kind of used to measure the spending power of different areas of the U.S. and different countries by comparing the cost of a Big Mac. The other one was the Starbucks Index, which is also used in a similar way as the Big Mac Index. Also found something similar, something called the Starbucks Index, which is basically used to measure the economic growth of an area. And it basically says the more Starbucks you have in an area, the better off economically it is, maybe. Or if you have an area which is getting a Starbucks or building more Starbucks, that shows an uptick in economic prosperity of the area. That seems a bit elitist, and it's just assuming just because people get money they want to go to Starbucks, but I didn't come up with it. Something that I've noticed, which may be an index, is something that I'll call the Dollar General Index. And I've noticed, and I haven't done any research with this, guys, so it's just an observation, that there seems to be an inverse relationship between the, I don't want to say how big a Dollar General is compared to other, like what other stores or resources are available in the area. So let me explain that. I've noticed, so I have a route that I travel when I visit my family. And in this route, I come across like 5 or 6 Dollar Generals. It's like a 90-mile trip. And I've noticed that when I'm in the more urban areas, the Dollar Generals are very simple. It's a hardware area. There's a junk food area, a hardware department. There's junk food, whatever. But when I go to the area where it's kind of rural and there's no grocery stores, the Dollar General is like elaborate, like it's big. It becomes like this mini warehouse, and they actually have like fresh produce. So maybe there's some type of index to be gained from there. I don't know. Maybe that's something for me to research. But anyway, that's the Waffle House Index. And like I said, if you ever get the chance, go to the Waffle House. Growing up, I used to go there all the time. I was actually there last night. I asked the server, had she ever heard of the Waffle House Index, and she shook her head and said no. And I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I was kind of surprised she hadn't heard of it, but then again, maybe I should. Anyway. Waffle House